we will start with folks who have something other than why I believe the majority of you are gathered here, so that they get heard first. Then we will go to you folks. And it's not usual for us to have a dialogue during public comment, but we may have some answers for your questions or your comments that you're bringing up. So, on the Zoom link, who do we have there?
Melanie, would like to say anything? Melanie? I think she's just, oh, there.
Sorry about that. I don't have, I'm just on to listen to the meeting, thank you.
Okay, very good. And now, Rich, you sometimes have comments?
Yes, I do, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
I know that you're gonna be talking about the revaluation
Yes,
bid. Will there be an opportunity for people to ask questions about that?
we will attempt to have, you've seen it, I presume, okay.
Yeah, specifically, is there a way for members of the public to put in concerns that they might have regarding the various aspects of the things that'll be looked at in the revaluation?
Short,
Thank you.
short comments.
Fair enough.
I don't
Fair
want to
enough.
be here at dinner time.
They can always email them in too.
Yes, you can
Yes.
always email, but
That
yes.
would be.
Okay, thank you. Michael?
Is the Lime Common Committee simply in recess, or would it have to be reconstituted?
My guess is it should be reconstituted. It's been since COVID time, which has now been several years, so. But we do have those reports.
Thank you.
Do we have, yes, ma'am, Lenore.
Lenore Bolton, saving it for another select board meeting, I hope, is the crosswalk issue. About 4 times within the last week, I've, stood at the side of the road, waiting to cross, and cars just kept passing. They did not stop or yield or, so that. So I think it's an urgent safety issue, and would like that addressed.
Okay, and I did notice that you sent an email and you had some suggestions, like
Yeah.
big yellow crosswalks in Lebanon
A comparable study with Lebanon and Hanover and Lyme.
we have,
We'll
we
just
have,
point out, we in the past have approved the state's solution, which is the flashing lights, and had a huge uproar from the town because the neighbor was complaining, who had a son that had an issue with it. But the son is no longer in town, to my understanding. We still think that's the proper solution. We had appropriated money for it. It's just an example of, this town can get pretty volatile at times on issues. And that was one that was, public safety should come first.
But Ben, even a gallon of yellow paint from the hardware store would help.
well, we might have an issue doing that since that's a state road,
Right.
but I like the idea very much. Our police chief would like to make a comment.
Yeah, I just want to comment, number one, so the city of Lebanon and the town of Hanover, they actually own what were state roads, so they've all been taken over, much like us taking over the backside of the common. So they have yellow crosswalks and raised crosswalks because the town owns the roads and they can do that. The state of New Hampshire does not use yellow paint, except for yellow lines. So, I mean, I'm sure we can nag them some more to come repaint it with white, but they will not paint it with yellow.
Personally, those flashing cross lights are pressed by the pedestrian who wants to cross. They're throughout the Upper Valley now. They're not a new thing. They were a new thing when we first proposed it. I think we've already put in the pedestal that is necessary to put one of those in. And it certainly should, in my mind, looked at again, because we don't need I mean, it's the busiest, kids are crossing there all the time, and they should be able to press a button and cross the road safely. It's the town, it's the school library, it's the town library.
Ben, that debate on that crosswalk predates my tenure on the board,
I'm
so
speaking to it.
maybe we could take it up again.
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah, I think we should, yeah.
I think that, oh, sorry. I think that child had a medical issue and
She did.
and the lights would have precipitated
Yes.
an urgent situation.
But
That's
after
why it
that's
got
gone
let-
by,
yeah.
and we brought it up again, and the parents were still
Oh,
opposed to it, but, again, John would be down there with his flashing blue lights every morning, and that wasn't an issue. And those lights are on so infrequently, and they're aimed right where they're supposed to be aimed, and
yeah, no, I don't disagree.
you see them everywhere, and they're not, I think, Gina, about down by your store, you had one going. I mean, they're just not obtrusive, so.
Right. So I think we'll be able to take up a discussion in the future. I know I was on the board at the time we proposed it before and very much in support of it, so we'll see. But again, the yellow, I don't think we'll be able to do unless we get special dispensation.
Well, the state told us that was the only way that could be done on it.
Right, right. Okay, do we have, Tim?
I just wanted to explain, explain why I was appealing the timber tax. Mainly because Rick Evans, who works with the RA, suggested that I do, because I think when you guys initially calculated it, you didn't have the information from the forester and from the logger and stuff, so I couldn't get him to send it in initially, so.
Okay, and
So that's
so,
why that's just to let you know why I'm
so it's a
appealing.
resubmission of the form.
Yeah, because there's new information, all the new information with it, so.
Okay.
And,
Well,
yeah,
I
with the
think that's-
logger road is,
We'll be looking at that halfway through the meeting or so.
yeah, I just wanna let you know.
Okay.
Yeah, Rick Evans thought, I thought, he suggested I appeal it, cause,
Yeah, we know you well enough, Tim, you're trying to get away with something.
right.
Okay, thank you, Tim. All right, so, let us begin with everyone else who's here who would like to speak first.
Actually, I'm gonna ask what the big issue is. Could you give us a sentence or two, what the expected question is?
I would let Sarah Vargo do that.
All right.
Oh, you're calling me out, huh, Judy?
I am.
Well, I am here because I really want to make sure that the select board is aware of how important this skiway is as a community resource for many folks in town. So my hope really today is to highlight that a little bit and hopefully work towards an understanding to have some collaborative efforts put forth around addressing the recent installation of a guardrail along Canaan Ledge Road, Turnpike.
Grafton
Grafton
Turnpike.
Turnpike, thank you. Not a strong suit of mine remembering road names. So for those of us who love to ski, having access to a community mountain so close to town is an incredible asset. The skiway is like most ski mountains these days in the fact that it's gotten a lot more popular and there's a lot of folks using it. We actually discovered recently that over 1/3 of the skiway pass holders are Lyme residents. So this really is an incredible asset to our community. It's a gathering place. It's a place where kids and families go to connect outdoors, to connect with neighbors within Lyme and outside of Lyme, while kind of participating in this very healthy activity. It's also not only in the winter that Lyme residents are using the skiway, we're actually accessing it often throughout the year, although mostly in those winter months. So when I personally heard about the guardrail going up, I was really taken aback, and kind of had discussions with some of my peers and other families who were also taken aback, and thought that it might be useful to get general community input around the decision. So I created a survey, put it out on the listserv, had created a QR code and allowed folks maybe who weren't on the listserv to access the survey. I put one up outside of the post office and one at the library as well. So really trying to get the word out that there was an opportunity to folks to share their thoughts and opinions around this guardrail. So today I printed out copies of the survey results for you all to take a look at. I also have a PDF, so I can put that in a public place where folks can access it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And really what I do, if anyone else wants one, a couple, you can pass them around. So really what the survey looks at is kind of, have you seen it? Well, first, you live in Lyme. Specifically, we wanted to make sure we were talking to Lyme residents. And I kind of lost my train of thought here. So we wanted to know if they were Lyme residents, if they had seen the guardrail, and generally if they were concerned about the installation or not. What we found through the survey respondents were that about 90% of folks who took the survey were concerned around the installation. About 10% were not, and some of those folks weren't concerned necessarily around the guardrail's installation itself, but the process that went around the installation.
How many people filled out the survey?
104 folks filled out the survey, which I was pretty psyched about. Felt like that was pretty good. We had a goal, I had a goal of around 100. I would like to say that there's no formal committee around this. Really, it was just kind of trying to populate some community opinion. And I think you'll notice through a lot of the comments, although there are some that are feel like the guardrail will address some of the safety concerns that Officer O'Keefe brought up. The majority of folks who use the skiway consistently recognize that this actually might cause even more issues around kind of access and traffic flow. Personally, one of the things that really sticks out to me is that many of our younger families will go use the beginner area, and now it's very challenging with the way the guardrail is installed to access that easily. So online ticketing is like standard. That's something that really all ski areas do. It's very rare that you go to the window anymore and get a ticket. So families can actually just park and boot up at their cars and go skiing. You don't have to necessarily go into the lodge. So that's pretty standard. As someone who's skied at the skiway my whole life, one of the things that I've noticed in the past few years is how good it feels when you go there. As a kid, it wasn't inviting to be dropped off at the lodge and have your parent being yelled at if they, were helping you unload a ski bag or your skis. It's something that feels really good when you go there. You feel like you're part of a community. People who work there say hi to you. They want you to be there. They enjoy you being there. And you'll see that there's a question that asks about that. So I also just thought that it was important to point out that many of us have found the skiway to be incredibly easy to work with and actually very inviting and really feel like it's part of our community. We don't see it as an entity separate from Lyme. It really feels like part of our town.
Okay, Sarah, I'm gonna stop you there. I think
Okay.
most of the rest is in the survey, and we've seen emails, and appreciate you introducing that. There, if the rest of you who are, or do you have,
I would like to just say, like, in conclusion, I would just like you to reconsider the guardrail based on community feedback and ideally have it removed entirely. I'd like to offer to continue to provide community support around alternative solutions to deal with some of the safety concerns that have been addressed. And I will say my one email was just saying that I was going to come here and
Right.
present
I
these
saw that.
survey results, so.
I saw the survey, and I did promise that we would ferret out the cost of the guardrail itself, which was $31,131.25, which came from block grant money, not directly from taxpayer money. And it is a part of a larger project that will be seeing the road further upgraded, I believe paved
Next year,
next,
hopefully.
when we get the rest of the engineering done, so it's, and I will also, I'm gonna ask our police chief to speak to some of the issues out there, but I wanna let other people, if they have something different or more to say, in a short burst of time, if any of you wanna speak before our police chief does address some of those concerns. Sarah, thank you, that was really very helpful.
Kevin, I said, I think it, I've reviewed the minutes over the past year from the select board meeting, and the thing that sort of becomes apparent to me, or I have a concern with, is the process. This is something that the majority of the demographic within Lyme utilizes the skiway, right? This is one of the treasures of living in Lyme, right? And I think that there's very little input, and what seemed to be tied to it was the opposition by the select board to the alcohol or the liquor license. But it seemed that these two were somewhat coordinated in a way. And when Dartmouth came in and spoke and was recorded in the minutes, they had to justify their importance to the select board within the Lyme community. And my concern is, this went up with very little public input, despite it being such a high use area for the majority of Lyme citizens, the overwhelming demographic. And to me, that seems like, I was surprised when it first went up. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, like, there it is. And, I can just imagine the nightmare of drop-offs and pickups, from Fort Sayre or skiing in the mountain. It's gonna be a nightmare. So to me, the process, I feel like, deserved community input before it went in. And that's my concern, and that's my input for the select board.
Okay, thank you.
Could I respond to that for a second? if you
Sure.
don't mind? That's one of the things that's articulated in this survey, and it was articulated in one of the letters we got. And I just want to say that from my perspective, that is just flat ass wrong. We had between 6 and 3, I'm just going by memory, meetings where our chief of police, our road agent came and presented information to the select board. All of those meetings were noticed. All of those meetings had agendas. All of them had minutes afterwards that someone could read and come comment. Look, I get it. I wouldn't be aware of what's going on in the select board to the extent I am if I wasn't on the select board. Soon, I hope not to be on the select board anymore, and then I will return to blissful ignorance. But I certainly won't be coming and accusing my successors of hiding the ball, which is what I think this survey and what this letter does. We didn't hide the ball at all. In fact, we talked to the skiway management about this, and we told them we were considering this, and we asked them to contribute to the effort because it's their activities there that necessitated it. So, look, you could agree or disagree with whether it's a good idea to put in the guardrail. We relied largely on our public safety experts, our chief of police and our road agent in making, or at least I did. But to say that there wasn't public input, or there wasn't an opportunity for public input, people just weren't paying attention.
I'm
It's
sorry.
totally public.
But accessibility here is a bit of an issue. The majority of Lyme residents use the listserv. The select board never posts
We're not allowed
anything
to.
on the listserv.
We're not allowed to.
Well, but,
Go,
but.
do you ever
I-
look, do you ever look
I
at?
don't know, I'm not sure that,
Yeah,
I feel as though the accessibility to what is discussed in the meetings is challenging. I had to reschedule this meeting 3 times in my work schedule. I had to move other commitments around just to be here to make a public comment. It is not accessible to the majority of Lyme residents to know what you're talking about, or even when the meetings are. I understand you have a lot on your plate, you're doing a lot, you're running a lot for the town. But this is a resource that a lot of folks use consistently. So it would have been nice to know that something like this sort of discussion was going on before
Excuse
it
me,
was
but
installed.
Are you aware that there's a Lyme, website that carries all the minutes?
I
all the
am
time,
aware,
and that's
yeah.
where-
Rich
we post that.
films us and puts them up on YouTube.
Okay, so I was gonna say something, this is about the best introduction I'm gonna get. I'll say a couple things. First off, I do try to videotape all of these meetings, and I do put them up on the list, and I'll send a note out on the list to say, you can see all these recordings. And so, that said, it's pretty easy to see. It's hard to know, but to your point, it's hard to know when the substance of the meeting is gonna be, review the minutes last time, the manifest, and yep, and that's the
Every
ordinary.
week though,
bit.
Rich, you
Let
come
me-
in
I-
and you
let me
say,
fin- let me
look, I
finish,
saw
David.
this in the last thing, and here are my comments about that. I mean, look, we're
Can I
constrained
finish,
by
David?
statutory law about how we have to run these meetings and what we can do. We go beyond that, we make them available, we make meetings available via Zoom. And to Dina's distress, many times we have deferred making decisions on things because we wanna give people the opportunity to express a view. But, I mean, look, you gotta pay attention to it, or, I mean, we can't come out and invite you to. How are we gonna know what issues are important to you?
You are
Dave-
invited.
Yeah,
Every
David, may I
week,
finish
every
my,
meeting will
my
be
comment,
posted.
which is, this, it seems, this is something that could have been foreseen as generating excitement. I think to have a public hearing, I'm sorry, wrong word, public forum, to have explicitly send a note to the list to say, we've talked to Dartmouth, we've da-da-da, we are thinking of these things, and to invite the public specifically for something that could be exciting, or of interest.
Exciting.
Has slipped out.
We have such
Of
exciting
interest.
meetings.
reframe.
So, that's a challenge, and I completely understand. When do you invite the public in, and when do you make an explicit effort to invite the public in?
Well, there is a general invitation, and I understand about sometimes it being difficult, and I understand that you have to pay attention because there aren't specific invitations that go out. But this has been in the works. In fact, I think at town meeting, we even talked about the road project for this year. And we have met with the college a number of times. Actually, I think this is a good opportunity for Sean to give you a little detail on the backstory about what went on there. And also, I know this is a sore point, but the skiway is not a town amenity. It's an amenity within our town that's owned by Dartmouth College. But let me have Sean, our police chief, give a little detail, and then we'll come back to you.
So, first of all, I just wanna say that, much of the survey is about how wonderful the skiway is, and I don't think anybody's here to dispute that. But the town has done nothing to keep you from using the skiway. Nothing. Those guardrails do not prevent you from using the skiway. They do not prevent you from driving into the lot. They don't prevent you from riding a bike or taking your dog for a walk. There is a large entrance at the north end of the parking lot for people to get into. This was part of the overall project that was gonna take place next year, but because we had issues with engineering and that kind of thing for a different section of the road, which is just beyond the lodge on the left-hand side, we opted to not, or the road agent in the town opted to not go through with the project, that part of the project, because engineering, we can't get that done yet. We did put the guardrails in. The safety issues are my concern, and they've been my concern for 23 years. Much like my safety issues with the school and why we don't have the flashing lights at the crosswalk. You know, it's really easy for people to come in here and Monday morning quarterback the select board, myself, the road agent, or any other committee that makes a decision. Safety is paramount. The amount of cars and people that walk up and down that road in the wintertime with no regard for our plow trucks, myself, or anyone else that travels that road is unbelievable. You know, I've got many pictures here of cars parked all over the roads. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for 23 years here, and it's been a battle for much of those 23 years. Doug Holler at one point was really good. They had staff members out there. They did their best to keep cars out of the road and keep people out of the road. But once COVID hit, they can't hire employees. They don't have anybody out there keeping people from doing the wrong things like this. This is right in front of the lodge.
Sean, we can't see, or officer, I think, or do you wanna pass it around?
Yep.
How many, did you write a ticket for this person?
These were taken after we were off duty.
Do you have a number on the number of tickets that were given out last year?
No, I don't have that number. You know, generally,
Were there any?
I don't go out there and give tickets because it's very difficult, because my computer system doesn't work.
But doesn't there's Wi-Fi access at this skiway?
Yeah, it doesn't work.
So how do you write tickets in the town, in the center of town, when you're standing there with your lights when
So,
you come in? How do those tickets work?
I write tickets, but when I have to ask dispatch for all of their information about the vehicle and the car, they don't wanna give that over the air because it takes such a long time. And if I have to sit out there and write 10 tickets, they're not gonna.
Okay, and I want
be
to
happy.
clarify. Chief of Police is presenting some information. This is not a free-for-all. Everyone does not have the right to just speak up.
Okay, sorry, I
Okay.
thought we were discussing.
No, he's presenting. You presented, he's presenting.
More pictures of vehicles. We do tow cars, but you know what, it's also a hassle, because now we have to sit there and wait for a record to arrive, all that kind of stuff.
Sorry, Rich.
I got it.
I know that more signage and all that was talked about, but right here, these signs on these posts placed by the Dartmouth Skiway. There are cars parked on the opposite side of those signposts that say don't park on the road. Happens every weekend. And if we're not out there, lots of times we'll be out there and we'll tell people to move, so then they go down and they drive up Dorchester Road on the dirt section, and they park up there where we can't see the car. And then they walk back. So, I mean, I've had so many discussions with the skiway about this issue. Whether they were with Mr. Adamczyk, who's the current operations manager, or prior operations managers. You know, oftentimes it's, well, it's the town road, that's your domain, which it is. You know, when cars are parked in the road like that, everybody has no choice but to drive in the ditch, which then breaks away our road. Oh, this is a picture of people parked out on the Dorchester Road because there was no place else to park.
I don't think you can see it.
Don't get me.
You know, so there's documentation. I have logs from Hanover Dispatch. Unfortunately, they only go back to 2017, which was when we switched computer systems. But just the amount of parking complaints that came in is pretty high. Not to mention the fact that the amount of times that we drive out there. I mean, I've literally told somebody to move their car and they drive down the road behind me and park it right back in the road again, get out of their car and walk away. Kids, students, parents, adults, all walking in the road while plows are trying to get through. You know, we all know that signs don't really make a difference in the way our daily behavior goes. People disobey signs all the time, whether they're speed limit signs, stop signs, no parking signs. So you can sign as much as you want out there. That's not the answer. Signs do not work. A physical barrier that limits one's ability to park or be in a spot where they're not supposed to be is the answer, you know? I mean, guardrails are put up all over the place. And they're put up, number one, for safety. Number two, they're put up to keep people out of where they're not supposed to be, which is not the case at the Dartmouth Skiway. And it's all about safety.
We wondered why Dartmouth couldn't provide people, they have a security service at Dartmouth, why they couldn't come up. Well, it's not their job to come up to patrol the problems of the skiway. So we're using taxpayer money just to monitor what's going on up there all the time.
You know, there's also been some comments about, you know, how the road's not highly used and that kind of thing. That's not true. There is an average, the last time we did it, there was an average of 200 cars per day that traveled over the Grafton Turnpike. That's not in the wintertime because we can't take a tally of cars in the winter because we can't put the coins out. You know, people will park in some amazing places. I've seen them park in the snowmobile trail. I've seen them park at the bottom of the race trails. And then all that does is create more hassle and problems because you get a wrecker, or actually Ivan has helped out a couple of times, brought the cat up and pulled people out. Not really what he's supposed to be doing, but he's done it just to get them out of the way. You know, the overall rudeness, and I'm not saying that that is our community, but just the overall rudeness of, well, I need to watch my child race, or I can't do this, or I can't do that, and why can't I just park here? This is, you know, it's just a road. Exactly, it's a road. I mean, if any of you were to put this on and sit in my car and have somebody come up to you and give you grief because you asked them to move their car, just one time, I guarantee you'd get this back.
Thank you, Sean. Now we have, I know you've got, Phil.
I just wanted to ask, what was the skiway's attitude towards providing parking monitors or parking aids or for people to help with that situation? And you had meetings with them.
We have, and we will continue. We have one scheduled for October. They were not terribly concerned, pushed it off onto the town. They were not terribly concerned. I think that sums it up.
Well, over 23 years, if there wasn't a problem, this wouldn't have come to pass.
Okay, you're up.
Yeah, I'm Emily Boren. I want to say I respect the fact that this is a challenging situation for you, I really do. I've been up there on days where it's really busy and crazy and people are parking out on Dorchester, going out to the green, and it's insane, and I recognize that that's challenging, and I'm sorry that you're having to deal with it. My concern is I think the guardrail is gonna actually make that problem worse, because I think people are going to park on the roadside of the guardrail. People can be idiots and will do things like that, and/or will continue to park all the way down Dorchester, or up on the dirt way as lots of people are going to greens. Like, it's just becoming more popular, and I'm concerned that the choice to put in a guardrail will actually make this worse. I also guarantee that people will hop the guardrail and just walk over it and still walk in the road to go to the Holt side. There's no question that will happen because it's low and you can just walk right over it. So I'm concerned that $30,000 of money used to something that may make a problem worse.
But we're making a lot of projections and haven't gone through our first winter yet of how it's gonna work.
We know that it cuts parking.
I have an issue with that. You know, I was on the planning board, chairman of the planning board, when Dartmouth wanted to make the skiway a conforming use. And their first proposal on making it a conforming use was to make all of East Lyme commercial outdoor recreation, which would have put commercial cross-country skiing and snowmobiling and everything else all through that whole valley. We had a hearing. Everybody with a green shirt who lives anywhere near Lyme showed up. And it was a very contentious hearing. And I shut them down, and I went to our attorney. I said, why can't we zone the skiway as the skiway zone? And we ended up making a lot of concessions that allowed for that to happen. There were a lot of people in town that were not skiers that were very upset with the concessions we made from the Lyme zoning to that. The condition that we put in was parking. That if the skiway parking got out of hand and they had to build a structure, it would revert back to conventional zoning, which would put a lot of constraints on the skiway all by itself. So it's very hard for me to look at this and feel a whole lot of sadness, because we made a huge number of concessions just to make that skiway operate, and operate in the way that the Dartmouth officials would like it to, by being a conforming use, by getting their own zone.
Right, but it's cutting the parking that was available by 25%. Those people are still gonna come, so they're gonna need to park somewhere. They're gonna end up parking down the road.
I've already heard that Dartmouth's willing to have places for busing in. They bus all the students right now.
Right.
They just had I don't know what the Dartmouth freshmen showing up. They bussed all those students in.
Yeah.
You can bus in the non-Lyme people and park the Lyme people.
It's gonna
be difficult, but with good planning, you should be able to maintain. Where's that 25% coming from? Our road?
No, the guardrail will cut 25% of the parking because of the
No.
plowing. Yes, it will.
You have
They
the
did.
parking in the road.
No, so because of the guardrail, there's now 25% of the parking that was available is now no longer available. They're not gonna
be able to configure the parking in the same
in the
way.
same way.
I haven't seen
Yeah.
any plan for configuration of planning.
Well,
I saw
mean,
Ivan
just
out
to
there,
look
and he
at
was
it
working
then.
on a plan and wanted to know if he could mark the guardrails for spots, so he could get as many people in there as possible, and we said that was fine.
right, but because there's no entrance where there used to be to go in on the lower half, that's gonna, the way that the cars are gonna be configured to come in and out of the same area to go out the same area that they came in, is going to further cut down the parking. So they're not gonna be able to park the same number of cars in the same way.
Well, again, our concern is safety. I don't know
And
how many, I
I
live up there, I don't know how
agree
many
with
times
you, I
people,
agree that it
they
is a
just drive
safety.
out into the road, they don't look.
Well,
see
but,
it.
I mean, people do that all over. I hear what you're
That's
saying,
not a
and it is
skiway
a safety
specific
issue, and just driving out of the road without looking, they can do it at the upper lot as well as the lower
Yeah,
lot. That's somebody's.
Just a story about the road crossing in front of the lodge. When that original plan for the lodge came in, the architects came in, and there was this beautiful overpass going from the lodge all the way over to the lift. And all of a sudden, that was gone and replaced with 2 yellow cones.
But that wouldn't have stopped people from your,
It still would have
you know,
passed,
your
yeah.
note that one of the safety concerns is walking on the lower road, right? That would have just helped with crossing from the lodge over to Hillside.
I just have one other comment I wanna make and then I'll stop talking, which is that, I think just the fact that hundreds of people in this town were surprised by the guardrail when it went in means that regardless of how much you think you're sharing the things that will really affect Lyme residents, we didn't know. Like, I do read the minutes when I can, I've got 3 little kids, work, like, things are going on, but I think just that response should show you as a select board that when there's something that's really deeply impactful to our town, it should be open to a public forum like this. So I just wanted to go back to that point.
Well,
Thank you.
all that was open to public forum.
Tim,
We may not have gone and broadcast it.
That's what I mean.
This is,
If
this
it's
is
something
going,
that's
but we
that
don't know what
specific.
affects you and what's gonna get you
This
all
is a-
excited.
okay, I'd like to move along. I've got Tim wants to make a comment, and then if our road agent wishes to speak, and then I think, given that there was a 15-minute public comment, and we've been,
No, I just wanted to say, it seems like the basic problem is the parking lot's not big enough. I mean, that's the whole issue here, right?
Yep.
So the college wants
Needs
to
to
run a
provide more
skiway,
parking.
why can't the college, is there any way they can make the parking lot bigger? I mean, they should be responsible for having enough parking.
They should.
And they shouldn't pay for the guardrail, obviously, because it's their problem.
they haven't paid for the guardrail.
No, they haven't.
No, we
That's a-
asked
we
them
pay
for
for
it.
That's a different,
We
that's a
pay
whole
town.
different.
Okay, that's something, but anyway, it just seems like the college needs to provide
They-
enough parking out there so there isn't this issue.
Right.
Okay.
We will be continuing to meet with them, but yes, that would make a great solution to everything if there was adequate.
Just one little
Yes.
question, if you don't mind, Judy. A couple of you guys have made comments that inject new information that we haven't previously been privy to. Like, I think you made the assertion that 1/3 of the pass holders at the skiway are Lyme residents, and I wonder where that data
Yeah,
comes
that,
from.
this was new to me, but I guess there's actually a skiway committee in Lyme, or there's a skiway committee, and, Mark Schiffman gave me that number, that 1/3 of the current pass holders, are currently Lyme residents.
So that's a Dartmouth committee though, I think, and so that's coming from Dartmouth.
That's not an official Lyme town committee.
No, I don't know, but that is it is official that last season, 1/3 of the pass holders were Lyme residents. So I think maybe if it's not a Lyme committee, it again just illustrates that there are Lyme committee members who are, Lyme community members who are invested in this resource.
And did that,
There was also I heard it today, I heard it from Mark Schiffman, that there's talk that we linked the bar at the skiway to the parking issue.
Oh, Ben, I didn't make any, I don't,
Well,
like,
I've
the
heard that several
cost-
times, so.
Okay, my
That's-
biggest concern is really that this is a resource that many of us enjoy in Lyme.
Well, we understand
And
that.
that the safety concerns that were brought forward from our perspective as individuals who use this resource consistently, that the approach that was taken doesn't address those concerns in the best manner. I respect that Sean and the road agent gave information around kind of their perspectives, but I think community input too is important, and the number of days that this is actually an issue, I think is far fewer. I mean, we don't know how many tickets have been given, we don't know when these pictures occurred, were they, what days were they on? So I think this doesn't happen
I suggest you refocus your energy to Dartmouth College to provide better parking and access, and less interference with town facilities. It's not a town facility.
okay,
The road is.
we really have other business, and we really need to move along, and we appreciate that you're concerned, we appreciate the approach. However, the town will not function if every time we need to repair a road or create a safety feature, we need to have a forum. I personally would never have occurred to me that this would have created, it's sort of like when we went 20 years ago to buy a new chainsaw for the highway department at town meeting, and talking about which chainsaw to buy took an hour.
So what do we do
It's-
now
it's-
that it clearly is an
Talk-
issue?
It impacts us as Lyme
Stop.
residents.
Talk to Dartmouth College about
Talk
coming up
to
with a
Dartmouth
solution.
College and be respectful when you come here. Do not interrupt our meetings. You had an opportunity to speak, I'm sorry, but enough is enough. We act, we take a lot of time making decisions. We go back to them and make sure they're what we meant to do. We're not always 100%, and we can't always be 100% for every community member.
And please go to the Lyme website.
Yes, but also go to the college, please, because we have been appealing to them for years to help with the situation, and we get the cold shoulder.
And the other thing is, a number of you have said that this was the wrong thing to do and it'll make things worse. I do the wrong stuff all the time, as my wife and 15-year-old daughter constantly remind me. It's quite possible that this is the wrong thing. If it turns out to not work, if this winter, if it makes the problem worse or if it doesn't help, we'll be looking at it again.
I appreciate that, that's really helpful to hear.
Please, chief, you get the last word.
I just wanna reiterate one of the very first things that I said before was that those guardrails do not and have not kept you from using the Dartmouth Skiway and/or the mountains for what they're intended to be used for. And as Tim Cook stated, the parking lot and the parking issue itself is really a Dartmouth problem. The road and the safety of the road is the town problem. So, that's it.
Thank you all, and we know it's difficult to come to these meetings, but we appreciate you did take the time. We don't have an answer for you at this time.
Thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, Tim.
Lenore will keep you updated.
Okay.
Give us a reminder
you.
email.
I'll be here.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You did a great job.
I have one question on the agenda.
Mhm.
It says review and discuss the skiway agreement. Are you anticipating Dan to be here today? Or is that just
No,
with the,
This
that's
is,
just
this
with
is
the
October.
board?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, thanks.
Okay.
You didn't wanna stick around for the manifest?
Yes, moving right along. I'm pushing the minutes off. If we don't get to them, we don't get to them. The manifest, we have a big manifest today. It's $962,000
I'll move
and
it.
$11, of
I'll
which,
second it.
thank you, David, and thank you, Ben, of which 600,000 is going to the school. So the town's portion is 362,000.
And most of the other 300,000 is going to Angel Bridge.
Angel Bridge.
Yes,
Yep.
that's true. So, comments on the manifest? Okay, those in favor say aye.
David, aye.
And Judy, aye, that's approved. All right.
So who moved it? I'm sorry,
I
I missed
moved.
that. Okay,
David
thank you.
moved it, Ben
If I don't jump on
seconded
it, Ben will get it from you.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just gonna try to move the meeting along.
Oh, we have
This is just a FYI.
an FYI, yes, we have from the state of New Hampshire. I do think we need to discuss whether or not we are gonna go with this, but they label the bridges in the town, and, they want to add additional labeling to at least one bridge, which has to do vehicle weight, limit signs for what they call EVs, which are emergency vehicles, not electric vehicles. And I believe the one in question, there's one bridge in particular that they.
Market
It was
Street.
Market Street. I was just confused why they weren't choosing other bridges. So we have one over Baker Hill.
So we need to approve letting them do that.
And we got Fisher's
No,
Bridge.
you only need to make a vote if you don't want them to do it. If you don't want them to do it and you don't say anything to them, they're going to
They're
do
gonna
it
do it.
We have a long time for that though, right?
till next year.
Yeah, so, you know what, I don't know how you feel, Judy or Ben, but I'd kinda like to hear from Aaron, whether he cares one way or another, you know, cause it's mostly, I mean, isn't that who's impacted by this, the fire
The
department?
fire department, well, the heavy trucks
Well,
too, but.
Yeah, but
Yeah. and
the,
it's-
the weight is not, yeah, anyways. Did you read what came back from the state when I asked them Scott's questions?
Yeah, it's all.
Okay, cause I don't, yeah,
There's no emergency vehicle that's gonna exceed that weight.
exceed that weight
anyway.
anyways.
So we're safe either
So it's
way.
fine,
Yeah.
what you're telling us? Okay.
I mean, I just was confused why they chose just
Right.
that one
That one
particular
bridge.
And did you ask them that? And
I
they
did
didn't?
not, it's the bridge over Connecticut.
That's a dangerous thing to ask,
Bridge
because then
over
they might,
Connecticut.
they go, oh yeah, you're right, there's 7
And
others.
then Market Street
That
were the
was-
only two. But it could be that they're separating them out, I don't know. I don't know. The
But
other
there's
ones-
nothing that's gonna exceed that weight for emergency.
Okay, so we're not gonna object to it, we're just gonna be quiet and let it go.
Right,
All right,
I would think that's what you'd wanna do,
is
but
that, do we have consensus on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine with me.
Reval bids. We have 2 requests for proposals that went out.
Alright,
Thank you very
Thank
much
you,
for
Scott.
being here,
Thank you.
Scott. Good work on the roads.
there's no Zoom at noon, right?
no,
Thank you.
One was for a full revaluation and the other was for a full statistical revaluation. I found it interesting, we have a total parcel count of 1,089 parcels in town. Other than that, I'm hoping that you 2 guys looked at these.
You know, you have previously expressed the view, I think, that you think the full revaluation is a better way to go here, that it's more thorough and more in-depth. Well, it's sort of a shame that we only got 1 response, but then again, maybe we should be happy we even got 1.
well, can we talk about the differences between the two
Well, let's
revals?
let David finish his thought.
Oh,
and then-
sorry, I thought you were done.
No, that's kind of it, sure. Happy to, Tina, you wanna?
Well, I think, there's some information, obviously, you know, that the full reval means that they're gonna go to all the properties and it includes remeasuring, physically remeasuring buildings. We do 20% of that every year, we're already paying somebody to do that. The statistical full reval is just that, it's the statistical part of it, it's making the balance for the, equalization ratio for the, you know,
It's
how.
applying the sales
It's,
data.
thank you, yes, updating all that, making everything current. They don't go out and remeasure anything. I
But on the
think
full revaluation, they also do that updating, right?
the statistical part would
Yeah.
take place too.
Yes.
They're just physically going out
Also
and
adding
measuring,
the
right?
measurement.
The difference is when you do the full, also you are asking people to allow them onto your property. And Vision, one of the Vision people came in and I was asking questions about kind of how we would strategically administer the
the full.
the full thing. And he said that if we got 30% of the town to respond.
They send out a
And
card.
allow them to go to their property and remeasure, we would be really lucky.
So a lot of people just say
So,
no and then they
A lot
can't
of
do it.
people just don't respond and you can't, and they don't do it.
So,
Why
what,
do you wanna pay for that?
what's the benefit of the full evaluation if it's not wanting to be 30% represented?
Well, I guess if, you know, if something was measured wrong, you would
Which I
find that
doubt
out.
it.
Well, you know, who knows, nobody's perfect, but if a building's a foot longer than what you had it measured or the other way,
We don't measure it.
it's not gonna do much difference.
It's been, my buildings have been measured 57 times, they ought to be.
Visiting everyone's property, if that's important to the, board or to the fact of doing the reval, or I shouldn't say visiting everyone's, I should say visiting as many people that will respond and welcome that. That's the difference.
Rich?
So, thank you. This is a perfect intro to what I was gonna ask. I think one of the questions that the experts that I know in town ask about is whether the current use calculations are correct. There are many notable properties that we observe that seem to have quite a large amount of current use tax treatment. And that.
By correct, what do you mean? I'm sorry, I just wanna understand.
Sure, so, current use is a special type of treatment for a certain portion of your property.
Right.
That because it's in current use, it's in some agricultural forestry or some other use, gives you a special tax treatment, which results in a fairly sizable discount on the property value of your
Right.
taxes. Is this this is kind of a remeasurement issue. Would the vision people be able to go through and look at whether in fact the property still comports with its current use
That's a survey
treatment?
issue, they're not gonna, they don't answer, or address acreage issues.
They're not
I
gonna
guess
send a survey crew
if-
in to
Okay,
resurvey somebody's property.
wait, I just wanna make this one point.
Okay, yeah,
If your land, now, some of ours are already surveyed, so we know,
sure, right,
you know,
right.
they're right,
mhm,
but
mhm,
some are not. So if it says you have 35 acres,
mhm.
when that gets entered into our program, we don't decide what category they go in. The landowner does when they fill out the
Sure,
thing.
right, of course.
And the amount of money that's charged per acre
Mhm.
is not at the town's discretion.
I agree,
It's a
I understand
state-
that, right.
Okay, it's a state thing,
Mhm.
so,
But what
you know,
Rich
there's
is
no
asking, I think,
discrepancy
is,
there.
is there some verification that the amount of land that's developed as opposed to the amount of land that is in current use is accurate? That results from either of these revals?
I don't believe that, that
I
would be
mean,
a
if they
survey.
came out and said, hey, this building was only supposed to be 20 feet long and it's actually 80 feet long, wouldn't that trigger somebody to look at, oh, well, I mean, cause I know I
If they
just,
have current use land, it would trigger a look at that saying, oh, there's not enough
cause that
taken
just happened
out.
to me when I'm building my little pole barn. Jordan called me and said, hey, we're gonna have to take some of your land out of current use because you're building on it.
Right, right.
Right.
So
And
the-
that's what we do, and if our, you know, if it's in that 20% that we do each year, and they see that, we would correct that right away anyways.
So, Rich, again, I could be wrong, but it seems to me that the full reevaluation presents a higher probability of catching that kind of error, but probably still a relatively low probability because the vast majority of property owners aren't gonna allow the person on their land to measure the buildings.
Well, that's a whole separate question, but I think as a practical matter, you're right, David. And the reason I was asking the question is whether whether the firm we hired to do the assessment, the revaluation, would even look at the current use claims versus.
No,
I don't think
No,
so.
they just look at
Okay.
buildings.
that's not
All
part
right.
of the revale.
Thank you.
Phil,
But I will say, if there are properties in question,
Mhm.
you should give us a list of these properties, because we'd be happy to look at them.
Well, that's tricky stuff when you start
yeah.
It-
reporting your
it's
neighbors.
tricky.
Yeah, it
Hey,
gets very
I'm
tricky.
just saying,
Phil,
you know.
you had.
Well, I was just gonna say, if somebody puts 100 acres into quote-unquote current use, builds a house on the first 5 acres and makes 95 acres of lawn,
You
and
can't do
beautifully
that.
manicured property, and that stays in current use,
No, I think it has to be undeveloped. or-
how does that happen? And is that looked at?
Well, first of all, those rules are not town rules, they're state rules.
Right.
So if you have a problem with how what they're deciding is current use as opposed to not, you need to take it up with Concord. But secondly, I think the rules, as I understand them, require that the land either be forested or agricultural, or undeveloped. I don't think you're allowed to put a T-guard on there.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that was validated somewhere, the agricultural or forest
Oh, yeah.
use.
It is.
The
Yes, and if it doesn't-
original application that comes in, you state what category of undeveloped use that current use land will be in.
And somebody checks that, the state
And
checks
yes,
that, or?
No, the
I had
RSS.
planted tree farm and, under the tree farm program, and the foresters come periodically to check to see what I'm doing to improve the forest property.
We have people from the state that come into our office too, and they do what they call random checks. And they choose 25 properties, and Jordan has to pull out all this stuff. Some are in current use, some are not. So
Okay.
if there was a problem there, they would tell us and we would have to correct that.
When the property is first put into current use, Dina, does our assessor go out and check?
Yep.
Okay, so,
He goes out and he looks and he makes sure the house is where it should be, and that it's as big as it should be, and the driveway is as long as it should be, and that they don't have a manicured lawn. There's been people and times where we have said, and they've received a letter, you're mowing this area, it's 5 acres, and you're saying it's in current use, you have to stop mowing it. And I don't
Yeah,
suspect, we don't go every day and check and see if they stop mowing it, but, we try to follow up on that.
I've had property in current use from before there was current use. And on a 100-acre property, it's no access to it. I was paying, I think, $110 in taxes a year prior to current use, and then all of a sudden I got a tax bill, not knowing current use had been passed, for $600 for that 100 acres, which forced me to put it into current use, and I lost rights on my property because I could no longer, I couldn't build anyways because it wasn't on a class
this
6
is on
better road.
Smith Mountain?
Yeah, but I lost, if I were to do anything, I had to pay a penalty to take it out.
Right.
So, everybody thinks it's this huge tax break, but on market values, timberland was timberland and it wasn't worth but the value of the timber. And, this came in and it actually benefited developers the most because they could buy a large acreage, keep it in current use until they were ready to develop. Then they'd pull it out, pay the 20% penalty, and then develop and make a bunch of money.
Okay.
So
You can always learn.
We have nothing to do with current use, we don't set those rules, it's
No.
not a town thing. I know that there are certain residents of the town who have been perpetually fired up about current use and how unfair it is and how it's a regressive tax and da-da-da-da, but
Well, it's not,
that has nothing to do with the town law.
It's not
It's a
unfair at
Concord
all,
problem.
because it
If
costs
it's a
the
problem
town
at all.
nothing to grow trees. Whereas you put a house on it, it costs the town a lot of money.
All right.
All right, further questions, comments? Wait.
Yeah, no, I was thinking, is there will there be another opportunity for
I can't
experts.
answer that, I don't know.
Just what I was gonna say is.
Yes.
As I've amply demonstrated today, I think I have a terrible ability to predict what's going to get people fired up or concerned. But I would like to suggest that we offer a public forum to talk about, if we still have time, or what's our deadline on this, Tina?
I think we need to.
Do we need to sign one of these?
You don't need to sign anything, but you need to make a decision on whether you're gonna do a full or a statistical one.
By when?
2 weeks ago.
Is that really the
No.
case?
Well, personally, I do a statistical, because
I don't know, what
I
kind of,
don't-
I'm confused, what kind of a public forum do you
Yeah,
wanna
we're
have
gonna-
about this?
we're gonna have a public forum as soon as we reappraise, and you know
You're gonna
that's
have a
gonna
big
happen.
debate about,
And
that's all it's gonna be.
we did sort of tell people we're gonna be talking
You
about this
did.
last week, but.
Rich,
But-
Well, more than once you
You know,
have. and
practically, every 20%, what's the measuring taking, every 20%, every,
About 20% gets done each year, yes.
and then
Yeah,
in the
well,
5th year, it's all wrapped.
unless they can't
Those are
read a damn
cyclicals.
tape measure, it's kinda silly to pay them to redo everything, and they're only 30% of the town's gonna let them on their property to begin with.
I
Well, you
guess-
guys can wait until Thursday next week if you need more time to think about which one you want. And if you wanna ask Rich or whoever else has
Rich,
concerns.
come out and get-
You
about
got your
this
thumb on the pulse of the
buy-in.
people who are all fired up about this. Is having an additional forum for people to come in and express their views of any utility? I mean, it's you, it's Rusty, what's the.
Exactly, I mean, and so, the reason I'm here to ask this question is whether there'd be any opportunity. If we just sent in letters to the select board that said, boy, I sure hope this and this and this and this get considered, you can talk to your contractor, to the.
And what do you mean by considered? You mean you want the certain properties looked at? You want the upper end people
I don't-
section to be looked at?
I don't, I
that's-
certainly
and you
would
can't
never
do that.
write, yeah, Dina, I would certainly never write that, but I would say, I mean, one of the questions that you've, I think, addressed here today is whether current use would be examined, and as a matter of course, it sounds like no.
Probably not much.
And
About
so,
the acreage.
you know, are there other concerns that we have that, I mean, certainly high-end value, high-end properties were undervalued relative to low properties. I think that's subjectively true, and that's why the equalization ratios came out, et cetera, et cetera. So, maybe what I'm gonna suggest is we will send you a note that says, we're concerned about these things, to make the assessors concerned about them, to say, this is a particular concern, we need to be sure that these measures come out right.
Okay, but that has nothing to do with the choice between full and
No.
statistical.
No, it doesn't, but this is but to your point, David, I don't think we need a whole public forum.
Okay, so,
But if we got our stuff together and got it to you in the next few days.
we can look at it.
And you
we
would
can-
look at it, that's perhaps all I could expect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
That's
let's
what I-
us make this decision about
Well-
full or statistical now.
And I would have to say, for my part, because of the comments I heard before, I feel that there were questions as to whether or not the measurements were accurate. We certainly know that a lot of the photographs taken are almost 20 years old, so they may not be current with what properties look like. If it reassures the majority of our residents that there's
Then
a fresh look
it's worth it.
being taken, I think it's worth it. I know there's disagreement about that, but
I agree with you in what you're saying, I think it's worth it in that respect, but practically I don't.
Well, they
The
could
cost delta
change-
is not very much, it's
Well,
40
they
grand
could-
or something.
Well, it's 46,000 or 95,000.
Yeah, so it's about 45 grand.
Right.
Or
We could
40
sell-
grand.
it's double.
We could
Between
do another
now
set of
and-
guardrails for that.
If you choose a full, all
Ah.
right,
It's a good
stop.
point. That one gets points.
So, if you choose a full, and for some reason between now and town, because you'd have to ask for money at town meeting for the full, because you only have enough for the statistical. If people change their mind or talk about it and think about it, then,
It's probably easier to scale back than it is to scale up.
yes,
Right.
money-wise it is.
Yeah, so we have,
I'll
what'd you
move
say,
we
67?
we do the full reevaluation.
I'll second.
Further comments?
Just a point of information, if I could. If we're doing the full evaluation, and 30% of the people allow people on their property, do they actually go inside the houses and see what's
they're let.
there, or?
They
Yes,
ask
They're
the
let in,
commission.
Yes.
if,
They're let
if
in.
the people don't want them, and they,
Oh, okay.
and that's what the 30% is voluntary.
It's
But
always,
voluntary can mean coming on my land with a tape measure and measuring my buildings and staying out of my house and my office.
right,
Or coming inside and, looking at the condition of things and whatever. Which one do they do? Do they
As
go
much as
inside the
sounds like they do as much
If,
as you'll let them.
if somebody lets them measure outside and come in, they'll do that. If
Okay.
they
And
say,
otherwise, they're
you
gonna
can measure
guess.
outside, but you can't come in my house, then they'll
Oh,
do that.
okay.
and
So
sometimes
that
people say
it's
you're not allowed on my
landowner
property.
determined, so to speak.
Right.
I joked
Yeah,
that Todd
quite a few
came
of
out
those.
and he spotted a robin's nest and added that to my assessment.
All right,
It's a resident.
I will call for a vote here.
David,
All
aye.
those in favor say aye,
Uh,
and Judy, aye.
Question,
Thank you.
is the measuring, just measuring buildings, even though they haven't changed, a lot of them haven't changed, they go out and remeasure?
It's redundant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sort of what I thought.
That's why practically I think it's a waste of time. But you've seen the atmosphere over the last few years. That's what we're contending with.
Okay. Since David's gone, but Ben is here, and Ben, up next is the report of woodcut for the Cook property. It's a re-report.
Yeah.
Did you have a
It's
chance?
not-
It's fine. It was a very small amount of wood.
It's not, straightforward though.
I know, but it's,
Okay.
we should do it anyway.
They want this amount, but doesn't make sense to us. Why?
Well, let me
Why
see.
are you gonna lower it to that?
So this says the timber tax bill was $539.81.
Mhm.
Then there was a worksheet submitted that said that it should have been calculated at a different percentage, which came out to $480.58.
Right,
So the difference is $59.23.
right, that's not what he's asking for.
And what I saw here, looking at all this, I would have gotten a much higher gross stumpage on a logging on my property.
It was a bad deal.
Huh? It was, I mean,
But-
you're paying for harvesting, you're paying for trucking out of the average mill price, and that's probably what Rick Evans
Yeah, but
jumped at.
here's the scoop. Rick Evans said that we don't have mill slips. We asked for mill slips. We're not supposed to change anything without mill slips. That's what
But
we
these
thought was part of.
these prices are all in line with what the mill slips would have been. What I'm saying is
that
out of
the
line is
generator?
the cost of harvesting.
Generator?
Again, it was a small project, he had to pay the harvester to cut a few trees.
And I think that's what
Yeah,
was
looks like-
told to us. We're sorry that it's a bad deal, but why should, I
So
mean,
what-
adjusting to the 50% seems very reasonable, but adjusting to the figure of $249 is,
What did Rick say? Talk to him?
Jordan, wanna come down here?
Cause that's where I just,
That's where I just said, Rick said.
Well,
They
I
didn't
can
make a
tell
very
you that
good
I
deal,
don't understand any of it,
no, it's
so.
awful.
It
But
is an
again,
awful deal.
he didn't have enough wood to speak of, so.
Well, that's because most of it's in Orford. And that's a whole different.
Well, but if you're a landowner, you're
Yes.
sending out 100,000 feet of fine, you're not gonna, those kinds of percentages are not gonna exist. Generally speaking, my loggers would give you 50% of the mill price and you pay the
Right, but-
trucker on, before that.
Right, but like I said, most of it was in Orford, sorry that just this little bit is in line.
Oh.
But I don't know, we have no millislips, all we have is what that guy wrote. There's a copy of his contract there, it's not a very, I don't know how to say this without
Detail?
missaying what I did about the property. It's not a good contract for the property owner. So I guess if you wanna ask him to pay $259 because he got a bad deal, then that's what you should do. Or you should change to the 50% and give the abatement.
So right now,
That's not paid at desk.
we're asking $300 from.
You've already asked him for whatever this one is here, $539. And the adjustment changes it to $480.
Dollars or hundreds of thousands?
No, oh, sorry, yeah, no,
We're not talking about.
$430.
And what is he asking for in terms of, he wants it to be
He wants the total to be $259 something. Because he's paying his contractor
I'm just
too
about ready
much.
to pay the difference just so we can move on.
Yeah.
I just hear what Rick Evans has to say. He's a state guy, deals with that kind of stuff.
So you're gonna wait till next week?
Yeah,
Okay.
but again, it's very small amount of money.
I know.
By the way, guys, sorry, but I'm out next week, I'm gonna be in Kansas.
Again,
Me again, I haven't gone since last fall.
He hasn't gone to Kansas since last fall.
yeah.
Not that it terribly matters, but next Thursday is Rosh Hashanah, so I will not.
Thank you. Okay, so. I know you're gonna be out next week, but I would like to do the budget review next week when we have some numbers, and Ben and Dina and I can do that if you're comfortable with that.
I'll send it to you ahead of
It's
time.
amazing what you get to volunteer for when you're not here.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I won't be here and have to review the budget.
You'll have another opportunity.
Yeah.
Lots of them. Okay, and what is next week? No, next week is not the meeting when we're meeting with the college.
No,
That's
it's the
2 weeks.
2 weeks after, October
Okay.
3rd.
So we should be looking at the Dartmouth Skiway agreement and thinking about what we wanna talk about in terms of what we're gonna present.
Wait, what date are we meeting with the
That was
college?
the only reason why I put that on the agenda. I wanted to make sure if there was something that you guys wanted me to be looking up, information, historical information for you
What is the date
prior
we're
to
meeting
that.
with them?
I think it's
10th.
October, no, I
No.
think it's October 3rd,
October 3rd is next week.
which is next, not next week, but the week after,
No,
right?
no, October 3rd is next week.
Yes.
This meeting was scheduled
It's
a
October
long
10th,
time ago.
I believe.
It is not. I'll have to look.
Well, or the 17th. October 3rd is next week. And I
Well,
do
no.
want David with us when we're
I'll have to get to,
meeting.
my calendar.
Okay,
But I just confirmed it again with Dan, so.
yep. I thought it was 2 weeks out or 3 weeks out. Okay, let's take something easy. Let's do the minutes from September 5th and September 11th.
I'll second, Gina, you got my couple of little comments, right?
Yes. So, who moved, David?
Then,
And did, and I second.
Yeah.
And it is next week,
So
guys.
you're on.
Judy, aye.
Oh, that's a problem.
Yeah, it is. The 25th, the meeting you're having today, should have been the 19th.
Yes,
So then if you stay on your regular schedule,
it's
then
next
every other week is
Thursday.
the 3rd, and that's when Dartmouth was coming, I believe. And then the 17th, but let me look at it.
Let's see if we can make them the 17th.
I don't think so.
All those in favor, do we already say aye?
Yes.
Okay.
David,
Did you wanna say aye?
No, thank you. I mean, I think I don't have any standing, but I was gonna ask, could you give a very brief summary of the purpose for the meeting that was on September 11th? It was an emergency, non-public session. I'm just sort of, what was the subject?
I do believe, this is the 5th, I believe we did have a meeting under legal, yep. And I think there are no notes on that. And it's advice from council,
Okay, thank
It
you.
was illegal, right?
right? And this morning's non-public that preceded the public was also legal,
Okay.
advice from council. Okay, I would like to move
I think you should.
the college out. We
Sorry
will-
about that.
That's okay,
I feel bad, yeah.
I do too, but, you know, it took them a while, just schedules change. But we're talking about a multi-year-old
Yep.
agreement that we had with the college, how taxes were assessed, how uses were, and we want to update that and continue our conversation about parking, lack thereof, need for more. Maybe some help from the college steering people away from the roadway, see if that makes any traction this time.
Well, and can I just note that, I don't know if I sent the email to you too, I know I did to you, that Mark, the general manager, is coming and on the 17th.
Yes, that's
And
what I.
he's, yeah, I know, but that's a whole different discussion than the one with Dan. And he just wants to touch base with you guys and keep you up to date with the changes and what's
Maybe we could do
gonna
both of
go
those things
on.
together.
Yeah, I don't know, I'd have to ask Dan what his idea was, so we'll see.
That's why I thought it was the 17th.
Because Mark wasn't part of that conversation with Dan, but I don't know what, that's his boss, that's up to him.
Yep. Okay, then, a little bit of an update. So at the next meeting, we're doing Tim Cook, we're gonna do the budget review. We are going to, right now, we're gonna do the minutes, we've done the minutes, check. Lyme Health and Wellness Fair application will be happening this weekend. We've had a lot of difficulty getting the various certificates of insurance. Jordan deserves an atta girl. She has followed up endlessly, pulling teeth to get what was needed. I'm hopeful that not only CCL, but any group looking to use the common takes seriously the need for the application with all of the information completed and submitted 30 days prior. We don't wanna be the guys that say, I know you've advertised, I know you've got people coming, and guess what, you didn't do it right, or you missed something, or you can't have it. So just anyone that's planning anything out there, please touch base with Jordan and get your stuff in ahead of time, everything. And we're glad that we were able to make it work, but it was very difficult, and it shouldn't be that difficult.
It's good that it all got resolved.
It
I was
is.
getting calls about
Yeah,
I
yeah, I was as well, but you know, it's, the thing is Friday, yesterday was the finalization of the application, that's not right. And we've certainly cut other people off that
Of
perhaps
course, the
weren't,
people who need to
perhaps
get the
they weren't
message that
as
you
good
just
as
articulated.
whiners.
The people who need to get the message you just articulated won't pay attention to the fact that the minute's wrong.
That's right.
Well, actually, yes, they will, because CCL is going to, the two people that do the planning for this kind of stuff are gonna come down, and they're new, they're both new, are gonna come down and meet with Jordan and go over everything,
Oh,
so.
that's great.
As far as CCL goes, they should be right up to snuff.
Good, good. Okay, now, my agenda looks to me like it's time to go into non-public. We have a reputational one, and we have employee evaluations, which is under A, dismissal, promotion, or compensation. And we will, well, we won't have legal with us, so we've already done that one. We did that ahead at 9:30.
Right.
Okay. Anything further from our loyal followers? Bill?
Just to make a point, as a guy who was required to take multiple courses in survey research,
Yes.
what you saw this morning was a survey of interested parties, not an objective survey
Right.
of a population.
This survey, frankly, just annoyed me. It was a classic example of trying to influence opinion rather than to measure it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm now moving to go into non-public session under RSA 91A